I once knew an 8th grade student called Mary. Unfortunately, she had to stop going to school because her father's income, which just wasn't enough to suffice for all 3 kids. She was a bit too young to understand why, but apparently it had to do with something called inflation. Would you classify Mary's case as poverty? Good evening, everyone. My name is Inesh Mukherjee, and I'm here to talk about poverty. Now, what are some ideas that come to mind when I say the word poverty? Perhaps you might be thinking of starving children, slums, or possibly even homelessness. Yes, this is certainly a type of poverty. We classify this as extreme poverty. Extreme poverty is defined when someone is living below the poverty line of $1.9 a day, as set by the UN back in 2015. A projected value of 263 million people could be facing extreme poverty by the end of 2022, projected by the World Economic Forum. And more frightening, 1 in every 5 children experience extreme poverty. However, there is numerous humanitarian projects all aiming to reduce extreme poverty. And in fact, the #1 UN global goal is to eradicate extreme poverty and world hunger. But I think you would all agree with me here when I'd say that Mary's case is just a little bit different. Yes, she is unable to afford proper schooling and education, but she's not starving or living in slums, now is she? However, Mary's case is most definitely poverty. It's just a different type of poverty, what I believe to be a much more potent issue, relative poverty. Put simply, relative poverty is defined when someone's income and standard of living is significantly less than the average population, to the point they just cannot afford the same luxuries as the average household. Now, let's say that the average household can afford 5 yacht trips a year and you can only afford 1. Don't worry guys, you're not in relative poverty. However, if you are unable to afford necessary schooling and education, then you most definitely are. Did you know over 20% of the UK population is experiencing relative poverty? Furthermore, because lower income families who experience relative poverty believe that they must achieve the same luxuries as the average household, this can spur up high crime rate and high income inequality for the economy, which is terrifying. But how does relative poverty even occur? Remember when I said that Mary's case had to do with something called inflation? Well, what is inflation, and how can it help us understand relative poverty? In economics, inflation is the fall in the purchasing power of money. Now, for those of you here who don't do economics, I get that might be a bit of a jargon and tongue twister for you to understand. So I'll try to explain it in as simple ways as I can. We have a population that grows exponentially. That means the demand for goods and services continues to rise. That means more producers and firms need to produce more to meet that excess demand. The producers, like us, they love a little bit of money. So to meet that excess demand, their cost of production has to increase. But they don't like that. They want profit. That means their price levels are going to increase, and thus prices across the whole economy will also increase. For example, this 20 dirham note I have in my pocket, I used to be able to buy a whole sandwich for 20 dirhams. But now, prices have increased, and unfortunately, it costs 25 dirhams. It's been unfortunate. But what does that mean for my 20 dirhams? It means that there has been a fall in the purchasing power of my 20 dirham note. And how does this tie into relative poverty? Well, if the incomes of those who are in relative poverty does not match the inflation level, they are actually getting poorer and poorer every single year, spiraling them down deeper into the cycle of relative poverty. So, ladies and gentlemen, I advocate that we need schemes to help reduce the number impoverished through relative poverty. Providing cash to the impoverished will not solve the issue, unlike extreme poverty, because providing cash will just stimulate more demand across the economy, just increasing the inflation rate and actually leading us back to square one, or maybe even worse. So we need schemes that do not increase the inflation rates. We need schemes for more viable jobs for the redundant workforce. A projected value of 30 million jobs could be taken over by AI by 2030. So it's important for schemes to be used to help them find more valuable jobs. Furthermore, Mary was deprived of education, so we also need schemes to help people get access to necessary education and healthcare facilities so we have no more children that have to experience a lack in education or of healthcare opportunities. So I thank you for listening home today.